Good morning, America. It is Saturday, 7:30 a.m. Welcome back to the Red Hot Mess Conference, the only news broadcast dedicated to covering the dumpster fire that believes it's the burning bush. I'm your host, Lionel Keros. Folks, I started this week thinking we might have a slow news cycle. I thought maybe they finally run out of ways to embarrass themselves. Boy, was I wrong. The circus isn't leaving town. The circus just bought a season pass to Disneyland. Let's dive into the hypocrisy. Oh, it won. Please come back. Weed your tithe! First up, Stephen Anderson issued a desperate plea this week. He preached a sermon titled, "Go Back to Church," telling everyone that whatever the reason, they need to come back. Now, this would be touching if Stephen hadn't literally cast out his own son for suggesting that doxing his brother wasn't a great idea. Stephen is desperate for members to return. But he forgets that the people who left didn't just drift away. They were slandered. They were harassed. They were called homosexuals. Some were accused of being pedophiles out of thin air. Stephen presents their absence as persecution. But out here in the real world, we call that consequences. You can't burn down the bridge, shoot the people standing on the other side, and then ask why nobody is visiting you for Christmas. I'm pretty sure the people whose characters you assassinated wouldn't come back for $1 million, let alone for a riveted seat and a lecture on plumbing. The First Lady of Crazy goes to Disney. Speaking of hypocrisy, let's check in on Zsuzsanna Anderson in a candid post about her vacation. The stay-at-home mom who relies on a full-time nanny bragged about buying art supplies for the kids she sees during photo ops. She claims she and Stephen are madly in love like newlyweds, which explains why she spends her vacations away from him, taking only one kid at a time. But here is the kicker, folks. She announced she is taking her daughter to Disneyland. For the uninitiated, the NIFB has spent 2 decades preaching that Disney is the devil. They have called it the headquarters of the grooming agenda. And yet, there she is. It turns out the only thing eternal and faithful word, Baptist church, is the double standard. She brags about not bragging while bragging about her holiday to the Magic Kingdom. It's truly magical how the rules apply to everyone except the royal family. Peace in the valley. Meanwhile, outside the cult compound, we have a shocking development. Peace, Pastors Tommy McMurtry and Roger Jimenez. 2 men Stephen labeled as ultimate traitors of reconciled. They recorded an 80-minute podcast together. And do you know what happened? Nothing. Nobody screamed. Nobody got muted. Nobody questioned the other person's salvation. Nobody insulted a wife. It was wholesome. It turns out that Christianity doesn't actually need Stephen Anderson to function. In fact, it functions much better without him. It was just 2 guys talking. We hope they keep producing content that doesn't rely on cruelty to get clicks. The numbers don't lie. And speaking of content, let's look at the scoreboard. That boring, peaceful podcast between Jimenez and McMurtry, over 700 views. And Stephen Anderson, the self-proclaimed leader of the movement. We pulled the numbers. His recent videos have racked up 78 views, 70 views, 57 views. One video had 5 views after an hour, 5. That's Stephen, his wife. Me taking the screenshot, and 2 people who clicked by accident. Stephen, your YouTube channel has less traffic than a blockbuster video in 2024. We are witnessing a reverse spinoff effect. Usually the spinoff fails. Sorry, Joey. But here, the spinoffs are thriving and the main character is performing to an empty room. It turns out excommunication comes with a massive subscriber boost. It's not a punishment, Stephen, it's a promotion. Art 5, the Gandhi of Phoenix. Next, we have Ben named Ben, who famously posted pictures of himself with a rifle, prays for his enemies to die, and rejoices over stillbirths. This week, Ben told us, people hate me, and I refuse to hate them back. Ben, buddy, you have hated back so hard, you made a career out of it. Once again, proving that if you removed hypocrisy from the NIFB, there would be nothing left but an empty building and a pile of unflushable toilets. Part 6, Stephen versus Stephen. And the logic has left the building segment. Zsuzsanna Anderson preached that rapists should receive the death penalty. This is the same man who preached that a husband can force himself on his wife whenever he wants, and that marital coercion is logical. So if we follow the flow chart of Stephen's own logic, he is advocating for the death penalty for people who follow his marriage advice. It's not just incoherent. It's a confession. Part 7, field report from the Exodus. Finally, I want to end with something serious. I was contacted this week by a former member of the NIFBA guy who last year was part of the mob sending me hate mail. He called me Judas. He called me unsaved. He reached out to apologize. He told me that Stephen's attacks on other pastors opened his eyes. He moved all the way to Texas to escape Stephen's leadership. But here's the important part. When he left, he told Pastor Shelley exactly why he had moral objections. And what did Shelley tell the church? He lied. He told them the man left due to church discipling. They have to lie. They cannot admit you left for your conscience. They have to invent a sin to discredit you. This man told me that for years the congregation was fed, and I quote, slop about me and others who left. He checked my salvation. He realized the Judas narrative was a lie. So to anyone still sitting in those pews eating the slop, the empty seats aren't traitors. They are people who stop swallowing the lies. The movement is shrinking. The views are vanishing, and the church discipline list is just a list of people who woke up. In closing, folks, this has been the Red Hot Mess Conference. This week we learned Disney is evil unless Zsuzsanna wants a vacation. Excommunication is the best way to grow your YouTube channel, and 5 views is not a movement. It's a rounding error. What will next week bring? Will Stephen ban himself from his own church? Will Zsuzsanna buy Mickey ears? Tune in next Saturday at 7:30 a.m. to find out. I'm Lionel Keros. Have a beautiful, hypocrisy-free morning, America.